To be up there in the clouds, to really feel that it's happening, it's very surreal, but it's exciting.
I think once you've got the bug for flying, I think it grabs you, and there's nothing you can do. It's just addictive.
It's the freedom, isn't it? It's an awesome thing, and it's a privilege that not everyone can have or do.
Once you've experienced flight, then you are bitten by the bug.
The very first time that you solo a light aircraft, when the instructor gets out, and you look across and the controls are moving and there's nobody next to you, it's fantastic. After you've done that, the world is your oyster, literally.
Welcome to the 2019 IWS Douglas Air Festival. This is that's been long in the making, and a long road has been travelled down which to achieve this first public air show appearance this weekend. I'm talking about Barder's Bus Company, named of course in honour of one of the RAF's most famous fighter aces of all time, Douglas Bader, a man who himself was stationed at RAF Duxford during the war years and whose name we mention so often in connection with the history of this great airfield. Bader's Bus Company flies 3 Piper PA-28. It's not so much the aircraft that are the exceptional part of this display, but the pilots. It's the first ever all-disabled pilot display team with some remarkable stories behind it.
We've long thought about a really high-profile project that we could create, the first disabled flying formation display team, and to have that team fly publicly, hopefully over the next few years. But we need to start point here, which is gathering you people together to select from you to see if you wish to get involved and move forward with this.
This is a very, very exciting day for us because it's the day that a dream starts to become a tangible reality. So sat here today is the culmination of perhaps almost 2 years of thinking, conception. I can't wait to see you actually get out there for the first time ever, actually attempt to try and fly in formation, because that's what it's all about. For me, there's no better way that we could honour Grandpa's legacy than creating the first ever disabled flying team. In this room, I think we have that spirit of Douglas Bader in every single one of these applicants, because you wouldn't be here without that same courage, that determination, that triumph over adversity. That's what's brought you in this room. So, as I see it, this project is you guys collectively taking this brilliant man's name and keeping it alive and doing something very special with it. My name's Charlie Bickers and I'm the grandson of Sir Douglas Bader. Today has been the day that a dream takes its first steps to becoming reality. 11 disabled pilots who've all come together to be cut down to the 4 pilots who will then go on to perform in Bader's Bus Company. It was quite sad for me to realise that Douglas Bader's name already is so under-acknowledged by so many people within my generation. I believe that we're going to create something truly remarkable, truly inspiring, that's going to make a big difference to the disabled community all around the world. I think Grandpa would be incredibly proud to be able to look down and see what his family have created in his legacy for the past 35 years.
I will be your point of contact as far as the team is concerned. I'm the project manager. I'm also one of the candidates today. We've all spent our life trying to avoid aeroplanes as much as possible when we're airborne. Now we're going to be putting ourselves 10 foot or less close to another aeroplane.
So my name is Paul Shenton, and I've been nominated as the chief instructor, or probably really a chief facilitator of instructors, to train the guys up. We're kind of hitting the ground running, and we're learning as we go already. We may have to compensate some of the techniques depending on what the guys and girls are capable of. I think it will inspire everybody. In terms of what we're doing today, we're going to run 5 pairs, so 5 two-aircraft formations. A lot of it will be you watching us doing it, maybe taking the radio. When we get up in the air, depending on the experience level, we'll then teach you the basics of just position keeping.
It's probably the biggest project we've ever done, and in 35 years to be able to come out with something which is pretty remarkable and really puts everything back into focus, back to Douglas, is the goal.
Battle of Britain Day at North Weald. Group Captain Bader, the legless fighter ace and ex-prisoner of war, led the flight past in his Spitfire.
Douglas Bader was a World War II fighter pilot, and his uniqueness was the fact that he was a double amputee,
which was caused by an accident after he had been to an air display when he was younger. He was invalided out of the Air Force and rejoined back in 1939 when World War II was declared. He shot down a number of aircraft, and he himself was shot down post the Battle of Britain in 1941 and spent the rest of the wartime period in prisons.
So I think there's two situations, two sides of Douglas. There's this wartime hero, and there's a person who left a legacy in life as someone overcoming a severe disability and getting on with his life. There's an article here in the Express, for example, where back in 1941, which starts to describe him as not a legless hero, but this indomitable person who was a fighter pilot. When the obituaries came out about Douglas, it was those obituaries that really led us to thinking we can't let this inspiration go. They'd left the dinner, which was a 80th birthday celebration for Bomber Harris. Douglas had been asked to be the keynote speaker, so that's one of the last pictures of him there. Douglas changed into casual wear and said to Joan, I don't feel well, would you drive back? And she started to drive back and got as far as Hogarth Roundabout in Chiswick, and Douglas had a heart attack.
The reputation which you have is surely by now is of being a kind of living legend. It's something that you have had attached to yourself and which you must be, of course, aware of. Is it something that is difficult to live with?
No, it's a difficult thing to answer that, but I can only tell you the truth on this one. I think it's jolly nice of people to want my autograph. I think it's nice of people to write to me or to want to see the film about me, and it's nice of you to want to talk to me on the television. I mean, I'm humbly jolly pleased, if I can express it that way.
When I look at my grandfather's life, I think his greatest ever achievement wasn't his wartime exploits. For me, it was the impact he had on the disabled community, and more importantly, how he worked to change people's perceptions of disability.
The way in which you've overcome your physical injuries has, of course, helped countless people in war and in peace. Do you like to think of your achievement and of the inspiration which you can give as being primarily military and patriotic, or is it something personal and private?
Of course, one is delighted that one was lucky in the war. Now, if I hadn't been lucky in the war, the disability side of it would never have been publicised. I mean, there are many other chaps who fought far better and much more effectively than I did, but the fact I hadn't got any legs caused me to get publicity. Now, that, as you say, has helped a lot of people, maybe, and I hope so, who've had similar disabilities. On the other hand, the other thing I must say is this: there are a lot of chaps like myself who've lost both their legs, who are just as good as I am and on them, in fact, probably better now, who haven't had the publicity because they didn't have the good fortune I had in the war, which gave me the publicity.
Overcoming a severe disability and getting on with his life, he was demonstrating that nothing was impossible.
Sir Douglas Bader is probably one of the reasons why I started to love flying as a kid, because watching films like Reach for the Sky and that kind of thing, it was a childhood hero of mine.
Nobody can fail to be impressed when they watch Reach for the Sky. I know that was a movie and stuff like that, but I took that to portray what he achieved.
In my eyes, he was the original superhuman. He has his prosthetic legs. I think he was at a time where if you were disabled, you were written off straight away.
Douglas Bader to me is an inspiration from an aviation perspective, and since my association with Aerobility is a very clear inspiration to those people that come through our doors. But he obviously was a disabled person and lived as an example to others that life very much is for living, and if you become disabled, it's by no means a reason to slow down or to stop.
Obviously, I'm of a generation that still reveres Douglas as something of a legend, and for me now as an amputee, a real role model for myself and lots of people here just like him.
It wasn't until I became disabled that I really related to Douglas Bader. The bloody mindedness that you've got to have sometimes when you fall over and you smack your face on concrete, or you fall out of your chair and there's no one around. Or somebody goes to give you a hand with something and you're fighting them off because you want to do it yourself. You get classed as, well, you're rude or you're arrogant, but it's not. You just realise that this is your life and you've got to crack on with it. And there's a bloody mindedness that comes with that, and a single focus that you have to master.
Tonight, Group Captain Sir Douglas Bader, this is your life.
Who Douglas is to me changes the longer that I live. Initially, he was just my grandpa. And then possibly at the age of about 3 or 4, when I was told that he had metal legs, he became a robot. I thought he was a robot, and I thought that was amazingly cool to have a robot as a grandpa.
2 members of the family missing for the simple reason it's lights out for them at this time, but before they turned in, they turned up at the RAF Museum at Hendon to crew the kind of old hurricane you flew in the Battle of Britain. Take a look there, your grandchildren, Wendy's son Charlie and Jane's son Adam, both just 2 years old. Thank you, Charlie and Adam.
And I suppose it was only as I was growing up that Grandpa became Douglas Bader, the war hero. And now, to me, he is more than just a grandpa. He is an inspiration, and he's a responsibility, and he's a duty that I have.
Yes, he was a war hero, of course, but to us, he was a human being. He was very inclusive of us in anything. We were aware of how much he did to support the disabled community and to make all the efforts to make himself available to do that.
Because he led such an extraordinary life, a life that had such an impact on so many people, we can't help but feel responsible for that legacy. So whatever we do has to fit with his memory, and most importantly, it has to reflect his spirit.
All these people are facing incredible challenges. They find flying gives them freedom.
Getting injured in Afghanistan created a big hurdle for me.
I've got cerebral palsy.
I have type 1 diabetes.
Every sort of movement, you're in pain. And to go through every day like that for years, it's very tiresome.
On a day-to-day basis, I mean, it's not a physical impairment. It's something that is constantly being managed day in, day out.
I always wanted to be a pilot from a young age.
When I was a kid, I saw the Red Bull Air Race on TV, and I thought I want to do that.
It's so hard for some people to have the confidence to go and do what they want to do.
Learning to fly was one of the biggest challenges of my life.
I've got a little boy, a little 1-year-old, and I think it's crucially important that I show him that, you know, I'm getting on and doing things not only for me, but to show everyone that I'm getting on with it.
It's more of a personal goal and a bit of a statement, just to show that people can work beyond the injury, stroke, disability.
Flying has changed my life. It's given me that purpose.
When I was born, the doctors said to my parents, he won't do anything. The best thing you can do is put him in a home, but luckily my parents did not do that. I just love proving people like that wrong.
Back when I was younger, you know, disabilities and stuff like that, there was a lot of, obviously, a can't-do attitude, so you would turn around and say, right, you can't do that. But in this day and age, you can't afford to say that. The perception now is not, you can't do that. The perception is, I wonder if they, you know.
They can see the challenges. They are becoming slightly competitive because no one wants to lose a place. And I think they're all very skillful.
What we're doing has to be incredible. If the whole point of this project is to change people's perception of disability, then we need to create something that's going to amaze people. The whole thing is going to come together. It's going to be like a beautiful dance in the sky that I hope is going to be inspirational to everyone that looks up in the sky and watches it.
It's a dangerous job. You know, I think I've only had 2 formation flights up to now, but it starts hitting home that, you know, that plane isn't too far away from you.
So with anything with aircraft, the only thing that will kill you or hurt you is impact with either the ground or something else. So obviously when you're close to another aircraft, you're increasing that risk of hitting the aircraft and damaging yourself and the people around you, and possibly people on the ground as well.
Being a pilot, you spend a lot of time not trying to bump into planes. So to be right next to a plane, just focusing on him, trying to not bump into him, but knowing he's there, it's totally different from what we've been taught to do.
Being in a display team, you know, is a demanding undertaking. If you don't work as part of a team, safety is compromised.
Everything that you do gets exaggerated through the back of the formation. So if I do a steep turn or a sharp movement, that ripples its way back through.
It's an incredibly steep learning curve for them, and actually incredibly frightening as well at times.
It's extraordinarily challenging for them, and it's an extraordinary challenge for us to put everyone together to make this happen.
The more I'm doing this, the more it's starting to hit home, right? This is not playing around. This is, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly, and we're going to do it well.
I think it will be the most terrifying, exciting thing I've ever done in my life.
First thing I wanted to say is that we all are the team. We all are, if you like, a squadron, which is notionally called Bodied Bus Company. The criteria that we've had to base this on is having met with the Civil Aviation Authority. There are rules and guidelines that they have to verify both pilots and aircraft to move forward into a situation where you can go into formation and display.
Essentially, what it breaks down to is that you can't be a display pilot with any less than 200 hours. And a few of you have less than 200 hours. So that obviously played a huge part in deciding who goes forward to join the team, but all the instructors say you're all great pilots. So what we decided was, as Dad said, to break it down into 2 teams really. So we're going to have Team A, which is going to go forwards and train through this year and perform at 2 air shows this year, hopefully. During which time we'd have Team B, and the plan is for Team B we'd put them on fast, slower program. And so yeah, with no further ado, I suppose the team going forwards are Team 1, we've got team captain, which is Mike Wildman. We've got Barry Hopkirk, Barry. Alan Robson, so that's going to be Team 1.
I've always been interested in flying and aviation since being a little boy. My dad had model aeroplanes, and I, as a kid, had model aeroplanes, and it just grew from there and there. And then I joined the Royal Air Force as an engineer, got injured, and then started flying as a pilot after losing my leg.
So all I wanted to do was be a pilot in the Air Force. I had flying lessons when I was 18 or 19 at Bournemouth Flying Club here. Got my PPL while I was doing that, so I ended up at the end of my degree with a private pilot's licence from the Flying Club, and the Air Force took me on at that stage.
Born and bred in a town called Stamford, Lincolnshire, just up the road from Wittering, which at my time was a V-bomber base. So aviation has always been buzzing around the skies all through my childhood.
I did 3 years in a squadron in the UK, specialising in taking the SAS and the SBS into battle. I was in the first Gulf War, I was in the Serbian conflicts. I then had an exchange programme. The RAF sends some of its best pilots to other air forces to exchange tactical skills and knowledge. I went to the Belgian Air Force, and just at the time when the Belgian Congo was going into meltdown. So I was very much involved in the Somalian conflict, and particularly in the genocide in Rwanda, where I flew the first aircraft in. And a bit like the fall of Hanoi, I flew the last aircraft out.
Straight really into the RAF from school. Started on the Bell 47, the Sioux, the little machine which the MASH people fly around in, and moved on from there.
I'd always wanted to join as a pilot, but I actually failed my A-levels. It was about the same time as my father passed away.
So I was fortunate enough to get a posting to Cyprus, to 84 Squadron as it became, the United Nations flight at Nicosia.
I find, fixing an aeroplane and seeing it fly, seeing it take off, I find that hugely rewarding.
Virgin Atlantic were taking on. They were a young, sexy company at the time. They'd only been around about 8 or 9 years. And I was lucky. I went, one day I was at
Boscombe Down, my Air Force base, and literally the next Monday morning I was at the Airbus Academy in Miami, and I was a civilian airline pilot.
Now, Great Britain's first disabled air display team will take to the skies in the next few weeks.
And this is one of those stories that is literally uplifting.
The 3 pilots were inspired by the World War II flying ace Sir Douglas Bader.
The 4-person squad is made up of wheelchair users and amputees.
One of the crew, who's been in a wheelchair for 20 years, says learning to fly has been like the light coming on again.
Well, I'm really pleased to say the founder of the team, Charlie Bickers, is with us. Talk us through that initial idea. Why come up with this team?
Well, we wanted to create a project that would really capture people's imagination, just like Douglas did in his lifetime, really. So I thought it was important to create something so special that would really inspire the disabled community and the able-bodied community alike, and also to remind people of Douglas's story, because I think who he was and what he did is still very relevant today, and it still brings a lot of hope to people even now. Well, thank you all so much for coming and sharing this very special day for everyone involved. I can't tell you how much it means to all the people here that have worked so hard to make it happen over the past 3 years.
Stanley calls initials for the display, landing lights on, and then into the routine.
This is our 36th anniversary, and actually is the 36th anniversary today of Douglas's death, so it's a particularly poignant moment for us, and one we chose deliberately for that point.
My accident was a motorcycling accident. I got knocked off by somebody driving a car the opposite way, and it just completely wiped me out. So I sort of woke up in bed, and obviously I could see the leg was missing.
Drove down to France on a huge bike I wasn't used to. I hadn't ridden for a year, overcooked it into a bend, hit a dry stone wall. The bike bounced back into the road, but I went down a ravine doing 80 miles an hour and effectively snapped off my ankle. There's nothing they could really do, and I got to the stage where I couldn't walk, and I couldn't fly because I couldn't walk through the terminal buildings because I was in so much pain. And at that stage I decided the best course of action was to have an amputation.
1990, when I was in the Falklands on detachment down there, when I guess I qualified for the Barder team in the sense that I had my spinal cord crushed by some discs going in, which left me a paraplegic. And it was sort of a disbelief or denial. You faced with a situation which you got to make the best of.
One of the things I've been beavering away on is that we commissioned Guy Farley to create music for the display. And I've asked him to come up with 3 different pieces of music that can be used at different points in the display, capturing different emotions built around Battle of Britain and Douglas himself.
Barder's bus company approached me to write an original composition to accompany an air display, which is going to be performed by para pilots. First of all, air shows are spectacular. You know, musically, there's the display, but then there's the journey. There's the journey of why they're doing it. But I'm also scoring the drama. So I need to score, it's not so much heroism, but the endeavor. That's in the heart. That's deep in here. So it's really important to me that I can capture the emotions of that, of what that means.
And these are just the roughest sketches. It's just him at home on his computer sketching out what the idea could sound like.
So I'm delighted to welcome to the commentary box now some representatives of the team headed by Douglas Bader's grandson, Charlie Bickers. Charlie, a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is for me and my family to be here today. Well, it's incredibly exciting for us because, as you said, it's been a very long journey. The concept probably begun almost 4 years ago now. And we've gone through an extraordinary process of pilot selection and training, and I'm incredibly proud to announce that we are the first ever British disabled air display team. And I suppose what's so lovely for us is that there couldn't be a more fitting setting for the team to perform their first ever performance.
Okay, then, okay, we're here. Aim of the exercise then, first display. Obviously, now is the most important exercise, so we're going to try and be as tight as possible, so we're going to be completely safe. We'll look at 14:30, and then that gives us a walkthrough at 14:40. All happy?
Here we are at Duxford Imperial War Museum for the first public outing for the Bader's Bus Company.
Duxford is a very obviously historic airbase. It's one that Douglas flew at. So for the team, I think it's quite an important place, and I think it's going to be quite an emotional performance for us this afternoon.
Here we are on this day, 20,000 people, and we're going to go and do it. And it's suddenly very, very real.
I want people to look at us as a display team, not necessarily a disabled display team. What we want to show is just ability rather than any of our collective disabilities.
It shows to the flying community that being disabled in whatever respect, whether it be amputee or whatever, really shouldn't pose any problems at all. If you want to apply yourself and try, then yeah, go ahead and do it.
Disabled people are capable of pretty much anything. We're just the same as everybody else. We just look a little bit different.
Right, well done, boys.
Second World War, those of you who served in the Allied Air Forces brought hope and confidence to the people of this country through your courage, skill, and determination. In times of peace, you have been an inspiration to the young, given encouragement and support to many who have suffered physical misfortune. I send you this evening my greetings and warmest good wishes for health and happiness in the years ahead. Elizabeth Allen.